alternative facts and boastful that voters seemingly forgave the president's transgressions on Election Day by voting for the country's first ever self-described grabber of women's private parts, it's become futile to speculate on what might constitute noteworthy or even newsworthy evidence of the depravity of the Trump West Wing. It's close to unremarkable when West Wing aides malign one another and speculate on who's next to leave or who may or may not be screwed in the various investigations. It's barely breaking news when the president fires someone on Twitter. And there are so many cabinet secretaries under dark ethical clouds that we don't always find time to cover them here. But today we have an example of behavior from the Trump White House and from people aligned with Donald Trump that's worth hitting the pause button for. It's worth noting what our politics now permit or even encourage. This woman, Kelly Sadler, is a commissioned officer in the White House with the rank of Special Assistant to the President. Now, I'm old enough to remember when that used to mean something. Being a commissioned officer means that your name is preceded by the words, the Honorable. Now, this is important. Sadler's official title as a commissioned officer in the White House is the Honorable Kelly Sadler. But the dishonor she has brought to the White House, to the president, and the country with these comments is staggering. Sadler reportedly said of Senator John McCain, who is waging a valiant battle against cancer, quote, "It doesn't matter. He's dying anyway." The context of those remarks: John McCain's refusal to support Trump's CIA nominee Gina Haspel over her support for the enhanced interrogation program. McCain, who was held as a prisoner of war and survived torture himself, was opposed to the program when it was first revealed during the George W. Bush presidency. But his moral compass and his consistency of principle is utterly unrecognizable to the men and women who work for the current occupant of the White House. The disgraceful comments could have emanated from a tone set by the guy who sits atop the chain of command. McCain is a frequent target of Donald Trump's. Here's then candidate Donald Trump.
He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay?
John McCain's daughter, Megan, speaking out today on her show, The View.
Kelly, here's a little news flash, and this may be a bit intense for 11 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, but we're all dying. I'm dying, you're dying, we're all dying.
Yeah.
And I want to say that since my dad has been diagnosed it's almost a year, July 19th, I really feel like I understand the meaning of life. And it is not how you die, it is how you live.
Right.
And whatever you want to say in this kind of environment, the thing that surprises me most is, I was talking about this with you, Joy, that I don't understand what kind of environment you're working in when that would be acceptable, and then you can come to work the next day and still have a job.
Yeah.
And that's all I have to say about it.
Neither do we. Megan there displaying a tremendous amount of grace, especially considering the attacks on her father are coming from multiple fronts. Here's a guest who appeared on Fox Business Network yesterday talking about torture.
The fact is John McCain, it worked on John. That's why they call him Songbird John.
To help us take stock of this extraordinary moment, let's go to NBC's Kristen Welker at the White House, Steve Schmidt, who's back with us today, and with me at the table, John Heilman, MSNBC and NBC National News Affairs analyst, also the host and executive producer of Showtime's The Circus. Steve, let me start with you.
Meghan McCain said something very wise and very important. It's not how you die, it's how you live. And let's talk about John McCain's life. He put the uniform of the country on when he was 17 years old, and except for the 6 months when he was a congressional candidate, he has spent every hour of his adult life in service to this country. And he served his country through horrible torture and unbearable pain, and he kept faith with the country. John McCain is an imperfect man. He has many flaws. He'll be the first to tell you. But he has always loved America perfectly, and he has served America honorably. I was asked a couple days ago at something I was speaking at about who will take John McCain's place. And of course, the answer to that question is nobody. 500 years from now, should America endure, there won't be another John McCain. We'll never see anybody like this in high public office in American life ever again. We should not fall out of our chairs that a vile person like Kelly Sadler works in this corrupt and vile administration. We see it every day. But when we look at why Donald Trump isn't going to be invited to John McCain's funeral, it's because of how they've lived their lives. John McCain's life was honorable. It was about service to others. It was about reconciliation. We don't talk enough about this, but I was in Vietnam a couple weeks ago. And if you go to Vietnam, the Vietnamese revere three American warriors. They revere John Kerry, they revere John McCain, and they revere Pete Peterson, a fellow POW of John McCain's who was the first ambassador when diplomatic relations were restored. Those three men, veterans of that war, but John McCain, John McCain tortured repeatedly. He was an instrumental leader in the reconciliation of our countries so that this generation could be friends. His life has been about decency and honor, compared to a president who's unworthy to say his name out loud, a man who is small and vile and mean and cruel and narcissistic, a man who's a coward, a man who dodged the draft, a man profoundly unworthy enough that he can't even understand at a conceptual level the meaning of John McCain's life. The virtues and the values that John McCain stands for in his long life of service to this country are unextinguishable. They light the sky like a star to guide us to the antidote for this vile, debased, corrupt administration. And so Meghan McCain had it exactly right. It's about how you live your life. And Kelly Sadler and all the people in that White House that are tearing down our institutions, pitting American against American, they're exactly the opposite of John McCain. He's a guy that I've known well, and I was honored to have a small role in the giant chapter that he wrote in American life. There were times where he infuriated me, he enraged me, he inspired me, he made me laugh, he kicked me in the ass when I deserved it, and he put an arm around me when I needed it. I love him very much, and despite all his flaws, I'll just say he is the greatest man I've ever known. And he is the type of man that I would aspire, and I think any parent in this country would aspire for their son to be like. And I don't think there's a lot of parents out in this country today who are saying, I want my kid to grow up like Donald Trump. And one thing I know for sure, there will never be a person on television, not now and not for 1,000 eons, that ever says what I just said about John McCain of Donald Trump, that he's a great man. He's a small and vile man. And that's the difference between the two men.
Let me show our viewers how the White House dodged questions about John McCain today. Let's watch.
Does she still have a job?
I'm not going to comment on an internal staff meeting.
Does the White House not think that you need to condemn these remarks or comment?
Again, I'm not going to validate a leak one way or the other out of an internal staff meeting.
Why not just apologize to Senator McCain?
Again, I'm not going to get into a back and forth because people want to create issues of leak staff meetings.
Does Kelly Sadler still work at this White House?
Yes.
Does he bear responsibility for the tone within this White House?
The president, as I mentioned just a moment ago, supports all Americans. If you look at what he's doing every single day, he's showing up to work. He's working hard to make this country better, whether it's through building our economy, creating jobs, defeating ISIS, fixing our judiciary system, helping with the illegal immigration problems that we have. The president is addressing a number of issues. That is what our focus is. That is what we are doing here every day, and that is what the president has, I think, laid out very clearly what his interests are.
Kristen Walker, how do you resist the temptation to run up and wring her neck? Why can't she just say, if a staffer said that, we're going to get to the bottom of it, and she'll be fired?